What's up, guys? Welcome to 31 Vision Podcast. I'm very excited today because today will be our first Q&A segment. I've been wanting to do this for a while. I'm really pumped. If this is your first time watching, we have a few segments to the show. So the first one is usually the standard podcast where we have a conversation. We just talk it out, ask some questions. Another one is 31 Cents, which if you haven't seen, we did an episode on should trans women participate in women's sports. It's a really good one. And then today, like I said, Q&A. So without further ado, why don't you introduce yourself?
My name is Coach Doug. Been coaching for going on 7 years now. Nice. Primarily a high school coach at Doral Academy, and then I run my Ballhawks organization for 7-on-7 football. Nice.
With 7-on-7, I'm a little jealous, man, because I'm 32, so I graduated in 2010, and 7-on-7, it was kind of around, but it wasn't like this.
We're about the same age. It wasn't how it is now.
Like when I started going to college is when like Huddle came out. The 7-on-7 tournaments started getting a lot more traction, and I'm like, damn, man, I wish I was just like a little bit younger, just a little bit, you know?
Yeah. We had Flag, Let It Fly, and those things.
Let It Fly,
you
yes.
Remember those? Those were the fun days, but 7-on-7 wasn't really a thing.
Yeah, man.
It was, but it was like slowly, like you said, coming up.
Yeah, man, 100%. So with our Q&A, we're going to pop it off with the first one. So question one, why do you think some young players want to play varsity and not JV in high school?
That's huge, especially as a high school coach. I'm actually the JV head coach at Doral Academy. And we get a lot of young athletes. And I'll be honest with you, I think it's a lot of the social media.
For sure.
That guides that and drives that. Oh, I don't want to play JV. To them, it seems like a downgrade. Mm-hmm. And I always tell them, guys, it was designed for a purpose. Right. There's JV and varsity for a reason, because a 14, 15-year-old coming into high school, his body, regardless of his athletic ability, his body is not the same as a senior who's getting ready to go to play at whatever university.
I think that's one of the ways that football really differs from other sports. Like someone can go pro in soccer, basketball, and you can be like 18. But if you got it, you got it.
Exactly. If you have that natural talent, you have that natural talent.
With football, you got to be careful.
Exactly. It's a different sport. So mainly social media. And then a lot of just wrong guidance because you got to trust the process. I tell these kids all the time. Go into the high school that you're going to contribute, be patient. If it's playing JV for 2 years, and play JV 2 years, it's okay. Actually, Nick Saban put out a video on how NFL coaches don't ask him how many reps their college athlete got as a freshman. It's the same thing for high school. College coaches aren't coming to the high school asking the athlete or the coach, hey, how many reps did you get at JV football? Because what they care about is the current time. Yeah. And you could have been a great athlete as a ninth grader. And as you grew into the program, you're not as good as the seniors. You're not up to speed with them. Yep. So you can change, right? It can be either or. So I think it's one of those sensitive subjects of they think it's a downgrade, but it's not. It's repetitions. You're playing football. You're getting better. Why not?
And yeah, you hit it on the head. I think some players don't want to admit that they need to develop a little bit. You know what I'm saying? And if you're riding the bench in varsity, how are you going to get better? Exactly. And don't get me wrong, you can learn some things by taking visual reps and being mentally engaged, blah, blah, blah. But the only way you can improve in sports is by doing.
It's live reps.
Live reps. You know what I'm saying? And there are so many aspects to the game that can be overlooked, especially when you transition from youth football or middle school now, because lately middle school football is a thing. I think that's pretty cool. Yes. And then as you transition, like there's not many. It's also another factor is the level of the high school too.
Correct.
Because I know
competition.
Because a buddy of mine, his son, as an 8th grader, played as on varsity, but the school was kind of trash. You know what I mean? Like so with some schools, you can start as a freshman. You know what I mean? And the school is like, it was okay. Right. And then there's some schools, like, for example, when I went to South Miami and I graduated 2010, like we had some dogs, like D1, like I was not going to start. You know what I'm saying? Like as a freshman, I played JV, like I got my reps in. And then once the JV season was done, because it was smaller, it was like 3 or 4 games, I think. Then we went to varsity and then I just played special teams. I was around, but I knew I couldn't start right away. You know what I'm saying? There was like a senior at safety. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I think the learning process and growing, there's nothing wrong with that for sure.
Right. No, and that's another thing. So what happens is kids hear, oh, their friend is at so-and-so school playing varsity.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to a different high school, and they don't understand that the high school they're going to is probably a school, bigger school that plays better competition and has more kids. So it's not as easy to play varsity at that school as to their friends at a smaller school. They don't play as many bigger teams. So they do have the opportunity to play varsity. It doesn't mean that he's a better athlete than you because he's playing varsity. Yeah. It's just a school. Right, exactly. And then I always tell them, if you're a freshman getting varsity reps and you're not making plays, what are you out there for? You're
just
not,
a body.
You're just out there to say that you're playing varsity.
Right.
If you're not contributing and you're not making plays, making more plays and mistakes, then you're not looking good. Yeah. But if you're in varsity and you're killing it, you get whatever your position is, you're making all the plays. It doesn't matter that it's JV football. It's football. It's live reps. And that's only going to make you better. So as you continue to grow or get older, you can play better at the varsity level.
Yeah, man. And like you said earlier about like they don't ask the number of reps you took. There are guys in the NFL right now that they play like basketball.
Correct.
And they only ended up playing football like 1 year and they ended up, you know what I mean? Like it's kind of like that argument of like quality versus quantity kind of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, so it's just a matter of staying patient. If you have to play JV, play JV, and just trust in the process. It doesn't matter. I tell them all the time, it's live reps, it's film. Don't look at it as a downgrade. Look at it as you're playing football. It's
a stepping stone, and it's kind of like a lot of these kids play video games, right? Like you start with the lower boss, you know, you start building up. Yeah, you know, you know what I mean? You gotta treat it like that, man. There's so many things we can learn, not even from games, like JV games, but practice. A lot of young athletes need to understand that practice habits and having some intentionality with your methods when you practice, like, oh, today I'm going to practice moving my head out of the way when I tackle. Today I'm going to practice shedding blocks this way, or, you know, like have a why behind like when you do stuff. You know what I mean? Don't just be out there like, man, I'm on JV. My buddy's starting on varsity. No, man, get better.
Get better. Exactly.
You know? 100%. All right. So question number 2. Oh, I like this one. So why are players jumping around from high school to high school?
That is a huge topic. And you even see it at the college level with the transfer portal.
Yeah.
But high school wise, it's tough as a coach, especially at the high school level, because you invest so much time and energy in developing an athlete. And again, social media gets into place. They might see an opportunity somewhere else, and that their team at the time isn't as good enough, or they just graduated so many X amount of seniors. So they said, oh man, we're not going to be as good as we were last year. And it's tough as a coach, because let's say you get a freshman, you build them up, you coach them, and here comes his junior year. You know, you're ready. You guys are rocking. Now he tells you, oh, coach, I'm transferring to X school. It's like, wait a minute. Like, I just spent 3 years developing you, and now you're going to leave. And not only does that affect that current coach and that current program, but it also affects the school that kid goes to, because now that school probably had a freshman that was working hard up until his senior year, knowing, hey man, my senior year, I'm going to start.
Right.
And here comes a senior, whatever position, and now takes a spot. And it's tough. It really is. I feel like the system is a little broken, because, like I mentioned, we're probably the same age. When we were in high school, it was by your address. It wasn't go to whatever school you wanted. So now that it's a free range, not only does that affect your public schools, your local public schools that aren't your charters or your private, because now their talent go to other schools. Now it affects that transfer, because they can go anywhere they want. Before, you couldn't. It's whatever address you lived, you had to live there. And if you didn't fake the address, that's where you were going.
Seriously.
So it's very different. Again, I think they don't want to deal with the adversity of whether it's a losing team or the competition. I think that's what one main goal is. A lot of kids see, oh man, I don't want to compete against this guy, or I'm not going to play. I'm a freshman. I'm not going to play until I'm a junior or senior. And they don't stick with it. And you see a lot of schools that they have these good athletes that decide, I'm not going to deal with the adversity. I'm not going to compete. They go to another school. They're not successful. And then that other school is successful. And then opportunities open up at that school. So you just never know. You got to, again, my huge thing is just trust the process wherever you're at. Yeah. If you transfer, maybe transfer once because maybe you made the wrong decision, whatever it is, but not every. I've seen kids transfer sophomore year, junior year, senior year. I'm like, what do you
right? You're not giving it any time.
Exactly.
Yeah, because of my personal experience, I have two sides to this. So I agree with you in most scenarios, right? With the athletes not handling adversity, it's something they need to sit down and really think about and not be so hasty and irrational. But there's also the other aspect of sports, which is the politics, So with that aspect, like for example, with my personal experience at South Miami, like if I had the opportunity to leave, I would have left just because like I was butting heads with the head coach who was also my DB coach. And in my senior year, like we disliked each other so much that he didn't play me the first 4 games of the season. And the linebacker coach told me, hey, just come at linebacker, I don't know what's going on with you guys, but just play there. You know what I'm saying? Like, and my stats were almost the same as my buddies that they started at their position all 10 games. You know what I mean? And so he was kind of like messing with my future a little bit. And so if you are listening, right, and you have a situation where a coach is kind of like doing you wrong like that, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a situation where, like Coach Doug capable, said,
right. You're exactly. That's 100. I agree with you 100%. If you're not being given the opportunity,
right,
for whatever reason, whether it's politics on the coaching side or politics on the parents influencing who's playing and who's not, then yes, that's why I think that you should be, if you're going to transfer for those reasons.
Which I think that was the intention of it,
right?
At first,
right, but then
like anything else,
too much is exactly.
Yeah, so we're just saying, like if it's just about competing for a spot, guys, that's the point of sports. Like to bring the best out of each other, and you bouncing around may not help with that process of personal growth in the sport. You know what I mean? So definitely think twice about it.
And I'll tell you one thing. I went to a coaching clinic and Nick Saban was talking, and this comes from his words. He says, like, if he sees a high school athlete that jumped around from team to team, he normally doesn't pick that athlete because he goes, that person seems like they can't deal with the adversity or when things get bad. Oh no, I'm leaving. Yeah. And that's not just with football. That's just with life. Life is going to get rough. You got to stick with it and not say, oh, I quit or I'm going somewhere else. Just if you can deal with it and it's manageable, then why not?
Yeah. And like we spoke earlier, you just need one season.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, let's say you competed and you split reps with somebody and then your senior year, you go crazy. That's enough to get a D1 scholarship, or whatever scholarship you want to get. You know what I'm saying? And people lose sight of the quality versus quantity for sure.
It's definitely important.
So question number 3, why is training properly for an athlete so important?
So I just started getting different certifications on personal training. And you see this a lot. A lot of these young athletes are tearing ACLs, which shouldn't be happening if it's non-contact, right? The rate of injury should be a lot lower for non-contact injuries. And I go to this gym and the way they teach it, they train multiple athletes. You're talking about LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, the list goes on.
Yeah.
And they explain that it's just in movement. So if you train the way that we function as human beings, not only does the training make you a better function human being, now it makes you a better athlete. And the way they teach it is like it's like 7 movements. Everybody pushes, everybody pulls, everybody lunges, everybody squats, everybody twists, everybody has a gait. Yep. And if you do those things as you're training, then you're becoming a better athlete and you are training yourself to reduce the rate of non-contact injuries. So whether it's doing a proper squat, you see a lot of videos and you see these kids doing all this weight and they're going straight down. And that's not the proper initiation of a squat because now you're becoming quad dominant. Now you're not working out. You're not working the hamstrings and all these things taken into effect. So when you're running full speed and you go plant now you tear an ACL because your hamstring and your quad aren't as strong. So and that's just, one example.
Yeah, man, this is just the tip of the iceberg, man. This is a loaded question. So where do I start, bro? So you hit it on the head. So imbalances is a huge problem. And when it leads to injuries, and I think a lot of athletes, especially the younger guys, I was guilty of it myself. I worked out more like bodybuilding kind of working out when I was a teenager because I was just doing my own homework, just trying to see because at the school, you know what they gave us? 2 or 3 workouts and they never changed it with no weights. That's crazy. You just put whatever weight you wanted. We never got introduced to Olympic lifting, like how you're supposed to do it. Right. We didn't start with just for example, when I train my clients, we use a very light bar or a very light dumbbell, body weight, and then work your way up, progressive overload. Bro, we were in there with you can throw whatever weight you want on your back. You can deadlift whatever. Bro, it's ridiculous. Yeah. You can't be with jits unsupervised. You know what I mean? You can't do that. So I had to teach myself, but then I quickly realized when I got bulkier, I looked good, yeah, sure, but it's about performance. So the bodybuilding, working out different body parts per day, that's not functional for sports. You know what I'm saying? If you want to do
bodybuilding, it's great. Right? Yeah. But not to, yes.
You know what I'm saying? So like you said, your gait, how you run. Most of these guys haven't even seen themselves run, from really assessing how they,
how their strength, the heel,
They don't know about that. You know what I'm saying?
Heel striking, you're not running. I tell them you got to stay on the balls of your feet. Yep. You watch a track runner, they're almost gliding. Yeah. So those things.
And then with the gait stuff, hamstring injuries are super common. Why? The way you land and then you start going way behind you and you know what I'm saying? Hamstring injuries. And then once you get it once, there's a very high percentage of re-aggravating it. It's one of those in PT, my PT friends are that's the injury they hate because there's no one size fits all for hamstring injuries. Right. It's kind of a weird gray area, so I think it's crucial for athletes to educate themselves or talk to the strength and conditioning coach at your school. And if you were like me years ago and you didn't have that, use YouTube, use social media, bro. Right? Now you can buy a program easily, and follow a legit program where you progressively get better throughout, you have a foundation, like you said, having your squats, your deadlifts and all that stuff.
Your lunges and all that. And it's also important for athletes to understand that they can't lack everything else, right? So working out is one side of it.
Right.
But you got to feed your body. You got to fuel your body with the right things.
Yep.
You have to stretch. Yeah. Well, it's stretching is huge.
Yep.
You can't, take those, that beginning period of practice lightly because at the end of the day, you're going to hurt yourself. Especially when you're running full speed in a sport like football that there is contact.
Yep.
You're bound to pull something or hurt something. That's probably all because you lacked stretching, you lacked hydrating, and you add the working out wrong. Now, like you said, you're setting yourself up for failure. And like we tell all the athletes, what good are you if you're on the bench hurt?
Yep.
Doesn't matter how fast you are, how athletic, what abilities you have. If you're hurt, then you're not going to help your program.
Yeah, it's a liability.
Correct.
Oh, man. Overtraining is a real thing.
And that's another thing.
You know what I'm saying?
It looks cool. Oh my God, I'm here. Yeah.
More isn't always better. And that applies to weights or the frequency of the workouts in the week, right? So for you younger athletes that are listening, you should have a certain kind of program in place for the off season. And then in the season, you throttle it down, but you still keep working out. You don't stop completely, and then some people do it backwards. Some people work out more in the season. No.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You have to kind of be smart about your load. And also wear and tear is inevitable during the season, so you have to that's where the stretching and mobility comes into play. You should be able to recognize tightness, not soreness, tightness, so if you see you're doing a stretch, you're oh man, I'm not getting my leg up as high today. Put extra reps at stretching that body part. Don't just think, oh, it'll go away. That small thing turns into a bigger issue. And it's week 3 of the season. Then week 7, you're fuck, this thing that was hurting me weeks ago, I didn't address it and it grew, so the sweep under the rug technique does not work.
And something to kind of harp on that, that's huge for Achilles, right? So Achilles, what happens is your calves get so tight that you say, oh, whatever, it's just tight. You don't pay attention to it. With time, if you continue to strike the wrong way, you're not striking on the balls of your feet, you're planting that heel, and you're striking on it, whether you're backpedaling, whatever it is.
Yep.
So you see like Aaron Rodgers, as he's backpedaling, with years and with time, tight calves, all that pressure, you're bound to pop your Achilles, because that's what happens. That tightness, you didn't take care of it, and now you were prone to an injury.
Yeah, man, and those are. I mean, you don't want to have any injury, but especially Achilles, that's like a year, man. That's
those
rough.
Are tough. Yeah, those are tough.
Yeah, man. Trying to think of. There's more things we can cover here with the training.
With the training. No, and there's good look, at the end of the day, it's all who you're with. Some coaches out there care for the athletes.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, with everything, you have some coaches that they just care about winning.
Yeah.
Like you said, they just throw, hey, go in the weight room, do these exercises, get strong. We just got to be strong for the season, not realizing that you're hurting that athlete for the long run. And I get it. We all want to win. We all want to compete. Yeah. But what service are you giving that athlete if you're just at the moment? No, what's important is that you win, that you compete, but the longevity of that athlete, so that you can see that athlete playing 15, 20 years in the NFL, NBA, MLB, whatever sport they're playing, and say, man, at least you did a portion when you had that athlete to say, I remember doing things right with him.
Yeah, man. Like, I didn't know till I went to college that you're supposed to test and retest, right? So you have percentages for your capabilities. Like, I was like, well, duh, that makes sense. You know, I was in college, like, what I've been doing, you know what I'm saying? Like, once I really came across a real strength and conditioning coach, I was like, high school was a waste of time. Not a waste of time, but like the strength. You
could have been way so more advanced.
That's what I'm saying.
You've done it right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, because, and it makes sense, percentages, right? Because if you work out with somebody and you guys are way off, like one of you are going to get hurt trying to do like another person's weight. You know what I'm saying? So percentages, and if you have certain imbalances, hitting those muscles a little bit more in your accessory work versus another player, they might need a little bit more work in something else. You know what I'm saying? Like all those little intricacies of a program is what makes all this happen. You know, how it makes everything tick and your body continue to be okay. But you don't know that until, you know, you read it or see it somewhere.
Right. You see somebody actually teach it to you. So that's why I think it's important for athletes to educate themselves, and more importantly, coaches, because they're the ones teaching it. And a lot of these kids look up to the coaches and they listen to them. If the coach tells you do this, they're probably going to do it because they believe and they trust that you know what you're doing and that you're guiding them the right way. So I tell all the kids, you know, don't take it from us. If I tell you to do something, search it up. Yeah. I might be wrong, but not only can it validate what I'm telling you, now you learn for yourself. So that's always one thing. If a coach tells you to do something, hey, you see a lot of knees over toes when they're lunging. Yeah. Dude, that's terrible. I'm like, what's going on here? But you got to do research on it and learn why is knees over toes bad. Not just because I'm telling you or because I heard it from another guy teaching me. Okay, why is knees over toes bad? What's the research? What's the science behind it? How's it have been proven? So that now you can educate, and not just because some guy that has X amount of followers told you, hey, do this workout. You know, you're doing it. No, research it and make sure that it works.
Another factor too, because of the phones, or maybe sometimes the coach just wants to see it, is ego lifting. So you want to put like a hell of a lot of weight on your back to squat or do something because it looks cool, or you just want to push yourself to a limit. But there are limits to our anatomy. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have a certain limit, and you might not think that 5 pounds, 10 pounds make a difference. But if you're already at your max and you add those weights, it will feel like 1,000 pounds. Yep. You know what I'm saying? So if you don't know how to do that or how to maneuver through that, you need to do some homework or maybe test yourself on the lifts. And also, if you're bearing weight and you're not sure how you're doing a movement, you need to scale it back down and make sure you do it correctly, because you're going to have a ceiling, right? So if you're doing a movement incorrectly, at some point you're going to hit a wall because you're not doing it right. Now, if you are doing it correctly, it takes a little longer, you know, to build it up to there. But if you do it right,
you're going to be able to lift more. Yeah. Like you said, like when you start with your athletes, how you have a progression Until you don't have that fundamental movement down pat, you shouldn't be adding weight.
Yep.
Once you have the movement, because now, like you said, it may take longer for you to lift more or squat more, but your movements are right. So now everything you're doing is right. Now you just slowly progress with more weight and more weight, but you know your movement is right. You know you're not going to hurt your body because you have everything. What you're doing, the sequence of it is correct.
You know what I just realized from questions 1, 2, and 3? All of them have the problem of instant gratification.
Yes. That's funny.
All right. So question number 4. Should high school coaches dictate what an athlete should do during the offseason? This kind of goes hand in hand with number 3. So what do you think?
You see that a lot nowadays, especially with 7-on-7. Like we said, when we were in high school, it wasn't a huge thing. But to me, for a coach to tell you what you can and cannot do during the off season, he has no business. That is the parent and the athlete that make that decision. You're a high school coach. You have the best interest for your athlete, and you can guide them and say, hey, listen, you're a sophomore, you want to play X position, whatever sport, I recommend you do this. This is what's going to get you better. This is what's going to help you get in front of so-and-so. Not, I need you to do this, don't do that.
Right.
No, you don't have those. Again, the athlete and the parent should make that decision, because some players want to run track. They're a football player, want to do wrestling. They want to do 7-on-7. They want to go to the gym or whatever it is. They want to play with their friends, something else, because they've been with the school for that entire season. Now they want to do something different.
Right.
If they're working on their craft, why should it matter how they're working on their craft? I get it. Coaches are scared of, coaches poaching other players, and that's completely understandable. You just have to trust your athlete to lead to, kids jumping around. You just have to trust your athlete and the athlete that the coaches that they're participating with, that this is not going to happen. But for you to tell an athlete, no, you can't do X because if not, I'm going to kick you off the team. That's crazy.
You know where I see that? With baseball coaches.
Yes.
There are multiple players that are very good at baseball that are in the NFL right now. That could have been drafted in the MLB. Yes. I think it's stupid that a coach, in any sport for that matter, like sports complement each other. You know what I'm saying? And then for the athletes' peace of mind as well, like you said, it's good for them to have fun, something else that's not as serious. Right. So like if football is your main sport, then you go to run track. Even if you don't compete, like that training, it complements football. You want to do wrestling? Guess what? You're going to become a way better tackler. You're getting stronger too, because wrestling training is brutal. You know what I'm saying? And then, or if you play basketball, it helps you with your vert. Volleyball, same thing. You know what I'm saying? It all helps in some kind of way.
It's always going to be beneficial. Yeah. Whatever they're doing, it's worse if they're sitting at home. Yeah. You can only work out for so many times, for so many hours a day.
Right.
So during that other time, what are they doing? So for example, I'll take 7-on-7. If I'm a high school coach, I want my athletes to play, because not only are my quarterbacks, my receivers, linebackers, and DBs all getting reps, regardless if it's tackle or not, they can still take the right angle to apply a tag. Yeah. They're playing the width of the football field. They're playing good competition. So again, it complements. They're getting better, especially a quarterback, making reads, throwing the football, making chemistry with their receivers if they're playing together. Why wouldn't I want them to do that? If that's only going to make them better when they get back during that off season. Now they come back for spring football and the regular season, they're better. They didn't just go to the gym, lift, go see their quarterback coach, and then went home. No, they went to the gym, saw their quarterback coach, and then applied all of that during a tournament for 7-on-7. It's a lot better than not doing anything.
And then not only that, well, we'll go into that. I'm going to say what I'm going to say for number 5, but also with the off season, that's the time also where you can train harder. And since you don't, since football is the priority, like you're okay with, like training sore if you prioritize, like what's the why? Football, right? So I'm trying to get faster with track, right? But it's okay for me to train a little bit harder with the weights because this isn't my main sport. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm improvising week to week, like, all right, like I can push it a little bit more, because during the football season, you can't really like push your body like that.
Because you're maintaining at that point. Like you said, there's a difference of preseason working out during the season and then after.
Yep.
Like you said, you can push your body, but you have to know your limit.
Yeah.
And again, for these coaches to tell athletes, no, you can't play this sport. No, you can't do that. Again, I think that's an athlete and a parent decision,
for sure,
not a coach decision.
And then if your fears of them getting hurt, like that's a risk, like in every sport.
You can get hurt going down the stairs.
That's what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not enough for me.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think much justifies.
Yeah, and that's what they all go to. Oh, what if he gets hurt? What if this building falls?
I don't know.
I mean, you can do a bunch of things. It's you can what if a lot of things.
Right.
You just you can't have that as your excuse. You know.
Yeah. I think a lot goes on coaches' success or what they're trying to achieve because the same way that kids use schools as a stepping stool sometimes to go from one place to the other in order for them to be successful and go to college, I think coaches in some way do the same thing. They're like, no, they get possessive because they're like, all right, if these X amount of players stay, then I will be successful these years and then I can go coach at a higher level or, there's ulterior motives sometimes, not always, but sometimes.
Yeah, I agree. And that's good and bad, right? It's okay. Yeah, I understand you want to keep your athletes, but don't, what's the right word? Don't stop them from doing something else for your benefit. Because you want to be successful. No, I can't let this get. Because I'll be honest with you, 9 times out of 10, they do it anyways.
It doesn't matter. You know what's funny? When you're really scared of something and you try to stop it as much as you can, sometimes you push it more to what you're scared of. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
All right. So question number 5. What can you tell us about the Ballhawks organization, the nonprofit?
So that's like my little baby, man. I started coaching. I'm going on 7 years. I started at Kendall Hammocks as a flag coach. There, I got introduced to the whole coaching thing. I was a baseball kid growing up, so it's very different. I only played freshman year of football. So when I started coaching it, I'm like, man, this is fun. I wish I would have stuck. I played football as a kid. You go to Lagomar Park and play tackle with your friends. So I played it as growing up, but never organized like I did with baseball.
Yeah.
And I started coaching it. I took over a team where the coach at the time was having some like personal things with the family and he couldn't do it anymore. So I was like, hey man, I'll help you out. Took over the team. And man, I fell in love with it. From there, it led to tackle there at Kendall Hammocks. And then they started the whole 7-on-7 thing started coming up. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. And I made it. I was talking with some of my friends that are coaches as well. And we were talking like, hey, let's go compete. Let's go to a few tournaments. So we did it. And Ballhawks, it came. Yeah, man. I'll never forget it. We were in a restaurant and we were thinking, what are we going to call it? And how are we going to make this happen? And here we are going on our 5th year.
What a blessing.
Ballhawks, yeah, man. I can't complain. It truly is a blessing to see how it's grown. Yeah. And I did it mainly for a lot of the athletes would go to these bigger name 7-on-7 teams. And unfortunately at the time, they had a lot of athletes that were your 4-5 stars. So these athletes couldn't play for those bigger name teams.
Yeah.
So what did they do? They couldn't they wouldn't play or they had to play for a lesser team. So I made it so that we can give those kids, not only in the community, because to me, it's all cliche. I'm doing it for the community. Like we're all doing it for the community. Right. I get it. Yeah. The main thing is to give those athletes that aren't your 3, 4, 5 stars, that are still really good athletes, an opportunity to go and compete and prove, we're either just as good as you or just a little bit underneath, but with the proper coaching and the proper structure, we can also be successful and compete. And you see it a lot. You see a lot of these teams that have all these named players. They don't have chemistry because they just grabbed an all-star team. Yeah. That's it. They just grabbed 5 kids from California, 2 kids from Miami, 1 kid from Atlanta, a kid from New York, put them together and said, let's go play. Yeah, I could do that too.
Yeah, right.
You give me all those athletes and I can call plays and they're going to make it happen because they have that natural ability.
Right.
Now, when you play a team
that's playing cohesively with chemistry and they're coached well and they're athletes. It's a beautiful thing to see, bro.
Trust me, it is. It is. And now you have an issue. You might beat them.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be no walk in the park. And we've seen a lot of that with the Ballhawks. And it's a blessing to have the athletes that trust us as coaches. We've had great coaches stick with the program. Our varsity team this year has been playing together since they were 12.
Wow.
So to see them grow, not only when they were 12, 14, 15, and now varsity, it's a blessing. Like you said, it's super cool to see them be successful and have a good time while they're doing it. It's not, oh, we have to win and they're competing, they're winning, and they're having fun while they're doing it. So that's really why we made it.
Key.
Yeah, man. And honestly, that's where I try to put our organization apart. There's great organizations out there. Trust me. I'm not saying that we're, the best. There's great organizations out there that do it the right way. But I just wanted to do my own so that I can put in my, I guess, sprinkle of things different. And I tell them with the social media, giving them the exposure to, traveling. It's super cool to hear a kid tell you, hey, coach, I've never been on a plane. I've never been out of the state. And now here we are helping them out if they don't have the means for it. And that's my goal. It is a nonprofit. So my goal is to start getting donations and sponsorships because I don't need it. And again, I have my career. Coaching is just for fun. My goal is to have Ballhawks pay itself so that I can sponsor or help more kids that don't have the means for it, that want to play football, but they can't afford to be part of another team because it's too expensive. Or this other team has sponsorships, but they have X amount of athletes, so now they don't have room for you. So the goal is that to continue growing it, allowing these kids an opportunity and for it to pay itself to where I can say, I can sponsor 10, 15 kids per division and give them that experience, give them that platform for them to compete and have a good time.
You guys will get there for sure.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, it's a tough road, but it's fun. It's been fun.
What kind of exposure? So let's say like someone's watching that plays tackle, but they've never played 7-on-7. Like, how can this help them? Like, how would you say this helps?
The exposure wise. So we'll tackle that first. Not only are you playing in-state tournaments, so you're going to different cities. When you're at these different cities, there's different teams, which means there's different coaches, and you never know who's on the sidelines watching. I'm not saying you're going to get a scholarship for playing 7-on-7 because you're probably not. I haven't seen the first. But it gives you the exposure that other eyes are seeing you. When you go out of the state, now other people are watching you. So you get those eyes on you and on your team. And 7-on-7 is probably the closest thing you're going to get to practicing football while there's the off season, right? Because there's that rule you can't practice with a ball, which is why they made 7-on-7, right? So to have a reason to play, and hey, that's fine. But if you're a DB, if you're a linebacker, a receiver, quarterback, you're playing the width of the football field. You're only playing 40 yards, but everything applies. You got to get a first down. There's jamming, contact. It's not like flag where there's no contact. Flag is great. Nothing against flag because they're just totally different. Flag football is it's just smaller field, but it builds quickness. If you're a quarterback, you got to move, and that helps your awareness on the tackle football field. So whether it's flag or 7-on-7, mainly us, we do 7-on-7. It translates to the tackle because I even tell our athletes, even when you're taking that angle to tag the athlete, pretend you're going to go make a tackle and take the proper angle, track the near hip and tag the hips. Why not? So the more reps you do that, now when you go and you play tackle, oh man, I took the right angle. If you're a DB, you backpedal and braked on the ball. If you're a linebacker, you're moving left to right. If you're a quarterback, you're throwing the ball, making reads. What is the defense showing you? Learning concepts. Receivers are working their releases, their routes, their hands. So it all translates to the tackle football.
What I like about 7-on-7, to me, it's like AAU with basketball.
Right.
Like you have an opportunity to piggyback about what you were saying about the exposure. It's a lot of networking, man. Like, like you're with your buddies playing 7-on-7, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe a lot of them play in different high schools.
Yes.
But at least like you get together with your buddies in the off season, and now you get to play with like a different batch of players.
Exactly.
You can learn different play styles. You can learn different ways. There's a million ways to run routes,
Right.
you know, or to do coverages and disguise stuff. And like the X's and O's can get pretty creative and fun when you play with different people, and there's just networking.
Exactly. No,
You know what I'm saying?
and that's what we talked about for like coaches dictating. These athletes want to play with their friends, and unfortunately, they all filter after youth football. It's funny, like everybody's together in youth football, and then everybody filters to the different high schools.
Yep.
It's fun to play with your friends that you've played against at a different high school. It's fun to get together. Hey, let's go have fun while still working.
Yeah.
So it's not let's go have fun and you're doing
Who cares?
something completely unrelated.
Yeah.
No, you're having fun and you're still working on your craft so that when you get back to your high schools, you're that much better.
Yeah, bro. You hit that right on the head too. So, but before we head out, man, you have any piece of advice for our young viewers? Anything you want to leave off with?
Man, honestly, just stay motivated. Definitely learn to have great mental toughness. An athlete, to me, that has good mental toughness sets himself apart from any athlete that has that athletic ability. Because if you have the mental toughness to make it through whatever challenges you have, it's going to make you a better athlete because you're going to fight through those tough times. Stick with your schools, stick with whatever sports it is that you're playing. Don't worry about, again, social media is tough. When we were growing up, it wasn't as big as it is now.
MySpace.
That's it. That's all we had. Don't listen to social media. Do your own research and try not to listen to so many outside noise because you see a lot of kids be successful by doing the things the right way. And even like at a high school, like I tell them all the time, whenever you're playing against another team and that team is really good, for example, let's say that team has a few 4 or 5 stars, 3 stars, whatever it is, and you're not a part of that school, and that school, they have scouts out there watching their players, guess who they're watching also? You. On the other side of the football. So if they're there watching their 2, 3, 4 stars that are coming to their college, just because you're a part of a smaller school doesn't mean you're not going to get looked. If you're a good athlete, they're going to find you. It doesn't matter, again, what you play, what level of it. Just do what you do it 100%, trust the process, and make sure that you put all. One more thing, a lot of kids don't have the size. And one thing I tell them is size is one thing you can't control. There's only one person that can control that.
Right. Yeah, right.
So make sure you do everything you can, whether it's working on fundamentals or whatever it is, so that if you get to the point where you do get that size that you wanted, now you didn't slack on those fundamentals when you were smaller. Yep. Because now you got the size and you slacked, now you're behind.
So now you don't have the skills.
Now you don't have the skills. But if you work on those skills, even if you don't get the size, at least you made yourself better. But who knows? Maybe you do get the size and now you've worked on it. So that's always something to remember.
I like that, man. That was great, bro.
Yes, sir,
well,
man.
guys,
thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for taking time out of your day, man. I appreciate
Yes,
you.
sir.
If you play football, man, make sure to check out Ballhawks, man.
Yes, sir.
Later, guys. It's great, bro.
Awesome.